Welcome to the last video for the 2018 Cheshire Quilters Quilt Block of the Month. This is finishing the 20 block quilt. And what you see in front of you is all the quilt blocks arranged in the order that they're shown in the picture in the introduction. And as I look at this, I'm not real happy with the placement of the colors. So what I'm going to do is move things around, and I'll come back and show you how I decide to lay out the blocks. Hello, here's how I've decided to arrange the blocks when I sew them together in the quilt. And I want to point out a couple of things as far as why I moved them where I did. First of all, there's 3 blocks that have just the light green, the gold, and the cream background, or only the cream and the green gold. So I separated those, I put those 3 toward the center of the quilt because I thought they're too light on the sides. The other thing I did was the kind of darker brown isn't used in many of the blocks, so I kind of spaced that out a little bit. And the other thing I did was make sure that the very corner blocks had the cream in the corners. I don't know why, but that just seemed like a good idea to do. So you'll notice the 4 blocks in the either end of the top row and the bottom row have the cream background right in the corners. Now the little strips that you see to the side, kind of the little bit darker gold, that's my sashing fabric. So just wanted to have you get a glimpse of it. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to my sewing machine and I'm going to put together the center of the quilt. So when I come back, you're going to see the 20 blocks sewn together and with all of the sashing. See you, it'll be a few minutes, but from the wonder of video, it won't seem like it to you. There, I've got all of the sashing put on, and so my quilt top is coming together. Next thing is to put on the inner border, which is the background fabric, and in order to do that I'm going to have to splice the pieces together to get the segments long enough for the sides and the top, just like I spliced together the pieces for the long horizontal sashing. So let's go over to the cutting table and I'll show you how I splice the strips together. Okay, so I want to show you how I splice the strips together to make the longer pieces. I've stacked up all 7 of the inner border strips together because I'm going to trim them all at the same time, and you'll notice they're all lined up exactly the same way, and that's the way I ensure that I don't cut anything incorrectly. So the first thing I'm going to do is trim off the selvage end. Then you'll notice this ruler has 2 45-degree lines that meet at the 1/4 inch seam, and that's the key. This intersection on the ruler is the key for how I splice strips together, because the next thing I do is I lay the 45-degree line along the bottom of the strip and that square end right there, and then I can trim off the end, and now I have something that allows me to lay the pieces together. We have to trim both ends, so let me just turn my whole pile around here. It's a mess on this other end because I've been concentrating on keeping the one end all tidy. But if I do the same thing and layer these together, here we go, got all 7 of them now. If I herd them here together, kind of tap them, make sure the edges are all lined up and nice and square. I didn't put the ends as together as perfect as I had the other end, but that's okay. I'm just going to trim off all the salvage pieces, and now when I put that ruler on the end, again I'm going to trim. And then the nice thing about doing it this way is when I pull up Pull up one of the strips on the top. If I pull it straight across, because I cut them both in the same direction, that angle is exactly right. So now I can layer the two pieces together, take it to my machine, sew my 1/4 inch seam, and then I just press all the seams in one direction and then trim off the pieces in the sizes that we need. And we need to cut 4 pieces from this. We're going to be cutting 2 for the sides and 2 for the top and the bottom. So I'm going to go do that, put them on the quilt, and then I'll meet you back here and we'll do the same thing for the border, the outer border strips. Alright, so I've got the inner border on and I have a confession to make. This was my inspiration fabric, and you can see I've used that in the quilt top, and that was my intention, was to use that as the outer border also. All of the fabrics that I've used and their colors are in this fabric. However, now, first I wasn't real tickled with this as the outside border, and then second I realized I had used up too much of the other fabric making sample pieces, so I had to dig through my stash to find another fabric. And so what I've come up with is this dark brown that I'm going to use as the outer border. So I'll cut my strips of this, I'll splice them together the same way I splice the inner border and the sashing pieces together, and put that on, and that'll be the my quilt top finished. So I'll put those borders on, and I'll come back to show you a final image of the quilt top. And there you have it, the 2018 Cheshire Quilters Guild Block of the Month Starstruck. I really like how changing out the fabric to that dark brown really frames it off nicely. So see you next year for the next Cheshire Quilters Guild Block of the Month. That's it for the 2018 Cheshire Quilters Guild Block of the Month Starstruck.